Now, lifeadministration.com presents the Life Administration Podcast. Here are your hosts, Leslie Loftus and Ryan Taylor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Life Administration Podcast. My name is Ryan Taylor, and with me, as always, is
Leslie Loftus. Hello.
Hello. So you stole my story in the beginning of the day. I was going to talk about my lightsaber story.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say we have to talk about this. So Ryan comes in and he's got this big old bandage on his knee. And I'm like, what happened to your knee? Best story ever.
Yeah, so the other night, Hallie and I were watching, it's kind of just weird, right? We're watching on YouTube Britain's Got Talent, and there is a lady dressed up as a pirate, and it's dog tricks, right? Mm-hmm. And so she's got the sword, and the dog is fighting her, and it's super cool and all that. Hallie's mesmerized, and when she sees something on TV that she likes, immediately we have to act it out. The thing won't even be finished. She doesn't even need to know what the ending is. It's like, no, I want to go do that. So she said,
I noticed she doesn't do it with Maverick. She calls Daddy. Maverick is their puppy.
Yep.
Right. So it's not make Maverick do these things.
No. It's that. Yeah.
It's Dad.
Yeah. So she runs upstairs, and I'm thinking, okay, she's gonna bring down a pirate sword. We have a couple of those upstairs, and we've dueled in the past. It's kind of whatever, And she walks down, and she's got the lightsabers from last year.
Awesome. By the way, was this yesterday by chance?
This was 2 days ago.
Oh, see, you
2
just
days
missed
ago.
May the 4th. Or wait, no. It was on Star Wars Day.
It was on May the 4th. It was on May the 4th. Yeah. It's she knew.
I'm sorry. I'm just loving this story even more.
Yeah. It was 2 days ago. So she comes downstairs, and she says, and she knows, she's like, okay, you get the red lightsaber because
you're evil.
I'm evil, right? Here you go. And so she gets the green one, and we start going, and I'm kind of taking it easy, no big deal. And then she looks at me and she goes, Daddy, I want to do it harder. I was like, all right, girl. So, she really starts coming after me. I actually felt at one point like Darth Vader in the Return of the Jedi when he's like this, and Luke and just hammering on the lightsaber, and I'm just like, this is what Darth Vader felt like. I mean, she is coming down on me, And so at this point, I'm like, okay, you want to take this to the next level? So on Alexa, I put Duel of the Fates on from the Phantom Menace, right?
Awesome.
And that starts going. It's such pandemonium. We're running around, jumping around. I'm teaching her how to use the Force, Lauren's just recording the whole thing on the she's just like, this is amazing. This is the best thing I've ever seen. But so I, to make it a little dramatic, I jump off the ottoman. I kind of do a tuck and roll, and when I go to get up, my knee just slides across that rug. Just brutal.
Yeah.
So anyway, I play through it, but then the next night I couldn't even really sleep because my knee hurt so bad. So anyway, now I have Neosporin,
big giant
and a
Band-Aid,
big
and I'm
giant
like,
bandage.
what'd you do? And he's like, rug burn, and I'm like, eyebrows, really?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, lightsaber duel.
Yeah,
awesome.
It was incredible.
Awesome.
She really, really liked it, and she passed right out after we were done.
And you get the bonus of exhausted the child, so now she's tired and it's bedtime. Night.
Here's the deal. So I wear a little Fitbit, right? While I was doing that, I was in the high cardio zone. I was at 130 beats per second. My heart was pounding. I was pouring sweat. I had to take a shower after. It was it was a thing.
It was a workout.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let's go
harder. Fencing is hard.
Yeah, it is. It is, especially when you're just trying not to lose an eye, really, because she just was swinging that thing with reckless abandon. You know what I mean? It didn't matter. She didn't care if she left the biggest whelp on me ever. I mean, with every ounce of her being, wham, just coming at me. So it was definitely a moment that I'll never forget. Yeah, very cool, and it's just nice to have. So,
and Duel of the Fates, awesome.
Yes. So today, shifting gears, we are talking about mentorship. And so my 30-second commercial break before we even start is I'm ultra passionate about this. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to college and get your degrees and all of that. Like that is all very important. But when you are towards the tail end of that or in the beginning of life, this becomes critical to have mentors. They will help teach you the things that you didn't get in college.
Right.
You
And
know?
by the way, there's a lot of stuff you can't learn out of books.
Right. No, for
I
sure.
mean, and now there's a lot of stuff you need to learn in books. There's a lot of perspective you can get from books. But when it comes down to it, there's a lot that can't be learned from books.
So I just finished reading The Perfect Day Formula, and it's a really awesome book in the sense of it gives you strategic goals for your life and how you want to live and all that sort of stuff. And it sort of breaks down a schedule in the sense of every day should have 3 phases. I'm not going to get into it. I do want to talk about the book because I think it would be valuable. However, everything is sort of pie in the sky, 10,000 feet. You know, this is what it should look like. There's nothing, it's strategic, not tactical.
Right.
Mentors help you with the tactical, I
Right.
think. Like when you're in it, you're living it, you have to make the decision. You know, should I go left here? Should I go right? Should I say yes to this project? Should I say no? They will help you navigate those waters. So I think it's really important that you're on the lookout for mentors. That's the key word, I think, is lookout.
Right. Well, and that's what we're kind of getting into because, you know, I'm 100% sure if you're over 20 years old, this is not the first time you've heard about the importance of mentors. If you're a little older than that, it's not the first time you've maybe say looked for one. Well, I've tried to find one okay. That's part of the problem is we have this mindset that, you know, okay, in order to be successful, I need to have a mentor or a couple of mentors. And so I need to go find them and I need to check off the box and that's not how that works.
No.
It's not how this works. Mentorship, both for the mentor and the mentee. Okay. As an older person, because usually, but not always, usually mentors are older than the person that they're mentoring. Thank you. There we go. Usually they're older, but really what's more important is they have more experience.
Yes.
Right. So, in whatever, you know, lane. So that would be a specific, because sometimes you can have people that are mentors for life and relationships and, you know, because it's not just about jobs. But you're going for somebody who is more experienced and wiser. And if so, let's say you're entering into computer programming, and you're older, you know, because you're doing it at 35. Okay, somebody that's mentoring you through that could easily be 28.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it's just so we get too caught up on trying to find the person and trying to find, like, you don't find them really, you so much as you're open to finding them. It's kind of, we're going to get very similar to romantic relationships here. And Ryan's got his hand up. Yes, Ryan.
You will not have your Obi-Wan Kenobi moment. Just see, right? Like Obi-Wan seeks out and says, I'm going to mentor you, Luke. I'm going to train you in the ways of the Force. And Luke says, okay, that sounds good. I have nothing left here. Right.
Right.
That's not how it happens.
Right.
Really, the way that it happens is Luke is in Obi-Wan's orbit. Like if this is real life, right? Like you're in they're hanging out the cantina, right? They're pumping the hydration stations or something like that, right? You're sort of in the right. You're in each other's trying to
They're picking up stuff at Mos Eisley.
Yes, they're trying to keep it canon, right? So, anyway, so you're in the orbit and you're starting to pick things up, and it's starting to become this natural sort of. You're just paying attention to what they're doing. How do they act when they speak with people? When strife or uncomfortable situations come around, how do they react? You know, and then you start asking maybe questions about that after the fact, maybe on the way back from Mos Eisley. Now it's like, hey, you know, you saw that Han shot Greedo.
Right. Exactly. Was Han right to shoot first?
Yeah, right.
Han did shoot first, by the way. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry. Today is our,
yeah.
You know, was Han right? The point is these things just kind of happen. Like there are relationships often that you already have, or perhaps that you know, start to have in various places that you go. They don't necessarily start out looking like mentor relationships.
No.
With the exception of the experience level.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only thing that I think is really kind of hard and fast about these, that whatever whatever the mentor relationship subject matter is, the mentor has more experience than the mentee. Other than that, yeah, because we talk a lot of times, say young women talk about wanting to find female mentors and stuff. Sex doesn't matter. Like you don't. They just, once again, they're kind of like romantic relationships.
Yep.
If you are open to them, you're more likely to find them. But they do kind of just happen to you. Like one of the things I want you to ask yourself right now, especially if you're at the stage in your professional life or your personal life, because there are personal mentors. Like my mentor guides me through all sorts of motherhood and marriage stuff and all that kind of stuff. Do you have one already?
Yes.
Because you know what? Think about it. You might. If I'm telling you that the big thing here is really experience level and wisdom level, do you already have somebody? Now, one slight change in there. One of your, a parent might be a mentor-like person, but they're still a parent and they have so many other roles and stuff, so it's not quite. But you might find that there are very mentor-like things coming through at least one of your parents or something like that. Little different when you get into, say, aunts and uncles and stuff.
Yep.
Those, as we start to have further family bonds, you get more, you can see how you can get more into the mentor stuff. So you might have one lying around that you didn't even realize was, oh my gosh, that's already my 6th grade English teacher who I'm still in touch with because we talk, because we just kind of hit it off and we liked the same books. And so then we talked a little bit through high school. And now that I'm in college, she's reached out to me to say, hey, here you might be going in, because maybe she knows your mom. I hear you're going into education or whatever. And let me know if you might already have a mentor.
Yeah.
Person or something that's developing into. So look at your own relationships and what you already have, use what you have.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Somebody might already be there.
Yeah, no question. And sometimes it can be little things. So there's sort of big mentors and then there's little mentors, right? Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't want to just say one person sort of commits to one other individual. I said it last week, but you, the listener, me, Ryan, Leslie, you are a product of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Right. So if you're hanging out with a bunch of degenerates, chances are you're a degenerate. I'm just like, that's.
Or you're trending that way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You're like, that's the way that you're going, or you're not at the very least, you're not making the right decisions that you should be making that will lead your life.
Or you're less likely to be making those right decisions because you might be, maybe you're the wise person amongst the crew of misfits and you're helping. Okay. Slightly different situation. Also very situational, kind of rare. Like in general, yes, you are the product of the 5 people that you surround yourself most that are. My children and I the other day, I don't know why we were watching that movie again, but we were because it's awesome. And Meryl Streep is
Devil Wears Prada.
Devil Wears Prada. Yes, you knew where we were going with that. Whose phone calls do you take? Mm-hmm. Because that's who you're in a relationship with. Okay. Yeah. It's the same kind of thing here.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are situations where I purposely go into a group of gentlemen that I know are not necessarily at the same level that I am, but I'm going into it with this attitude of kind of bringing everybody up. You know what I mean? Like I just had this great conversation with somebody the other day who we don't have the mentor, like we don't have that label, right? But when things go sideways, he seeks me out to talk to me about what his mindset should be, how should he approach it. In any case, he comes to me and he got this job promotion and they added some things to it and they added some pay, but he was just concerned about how it was all going to look. Right. And so instead of getting wrapped up in all the concerns, because the concerns are going to be there and you can't really do anything about it, I'm instead like trying to frame this up as like, let's look what this means long term. Right. So yes, right now I understand you have these concerns. And I'm with you. However, have you looked at these other relationships that you're going to be able to build? How invaluable you're going to be in these departments now that all of these things, the phone call thing, that all these things that are streaming down now are coming directly from the owners and it's kind of coming to you and you're now implementing it in your departments, right? And so
suddenly these concerns that you're right to notice, now they look a little more short term.
Right.
In which case it's kind of like, okay, I can deal with those.
Right.
To get the longer term. Right.
Right. So just kind of walking through that, right? So I'm in that group purposely. Now, however, I, being what I would consider a mentor to a lot of 20 plus year olds, I also have mentors at 39, right? I have really two big mentors, and I think I have a spiritual mentor for my spiritual journey, and then I have like a personal mentor for my own personal growth and just making sure that I'm okay.
But both of those, like, it's not like a secret Santa thing where you draw names out of a hat, and because a lot of times you'll see organizations that try to come up with mentor and mentee programs, and I never really see them be very successful. Like, both of the mentor relationships you're talking about just kind of happened organically on their own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And it's not like those programs are good. And if they offer those programs at your work, or they're talking about it in HR meetings or something like that, like, you should definitely be jumping on that, because if nothing else, it shows you a willingness to want to be taught.
Which is a huge thing in this.
A huge thing.
You have to be willing to be mentored.
Yes.
Right. So if you're just, I want to get a mentor for the checkbox, but I'm not actually going to listen to what anybody has to say, this is not going to work.
No, not at all.
Okay. Anyway.
So
yeah. The programs are somewhat worthwhile, but
you might not love your mentor, right? Your mentor might not love mentee. Maybe you do, and it's amazing.
Well,
right?
And I find when they're designed like that, they tend to be a little more focused on a certain topic.
Yep.
Like mentoring through a project or mentoring through this one stage of your career or something. So they're kind of limited in scope. When we're talking about, you have your spiritual mentor, you have your personal mentor. I'm looking right across from me is my main mentor who I met in college. She was my, I was an officer in my sorority, and she was the alumni advisor. And we just hit it off, and it's been 30 years, and we still, there's her picture when I was at one of her daughter's weddings. It just kind of, and those kind of long-term mentor-mentee relationships, those are the ones that happen organically. The other stuff can be short-lived and everything. So don't turn it down. Again, you want to be willing to be mentored. You want to be willing to be a mentor.
Yeah.
Right. So both parties have to be seeking, have to be looking for this.
Yeah. And that's going to lead into mindset, but I want to table this for 1 second, because I want to talk about one other thing about my professional mentor. Especially when I was in the corporate world. Now I've obviously drifted away from that, but we are still very close. There will be moments where you could realize I can learn a lot from this person. And when you have those moments, it's very easy to just go about your business and sort of just keep going on with your day. Like, oh, this person's really smart. I gel with them, whatever. So in my case, I was a store manager at Game Crazy. And if you don't know, you can click my picture on the bio and see. But anyway, my kids found that video just so it was hysterical. That's why I be Ride Dog. Right? Can't walk in this house without Jim calling me Ride Dog. It's very humbling. So in any case, I had our at the time, our senior vice president came into our store, and he looked at me and he said, "We either have to promote you or fire you." Right. And he promoted me. But in that conversation, I knew that he understood me as a person, who I wanted to be as a leader. And I obviously looked at him, being the senior vice president of this company at the time, just being like, man, this guy's got it together. But he wasn't like every other SVP that I've ever met. You know what I mean? There was something about him tangible. We connected. Anyway, long story short, we ended up becoming very good friends, moving out to Portland, starting a company with him. And so much so that even recently, when I was streaming on Twitch, he now works for Amazon, but he shows up to my stream and drops 50 subs, gives, you know what I mean? Just you know what I mean? Hadn't talked to the guy in probably a year. And he just comes in, boom, starts typing in the chat. And I mean, it made me feel so good. But that's what mentors should do. They should be bringing you up. if you have a mentor.
And you notice how he just said, they hadn't talked in a year. And it's very, very similar to long-term friendships.
Yep.
Okay. You get close enough with this person that you can really go for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then it's just like you were talking yesterday. But I think sometimes people get intimidated by a mentor because they think we need to have coffee every week or something, something like that. It's like when you read in, Cosmopolitan or something. Oh, well, so Valentine's Day, this is what a typical Valentine. And so you have these okay, there's roses and there's chocolate or whatever. And you have this mindset of how this relationship is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Let go of all that.
Yeah.
Let go of this really is the long-term. If the relationship's really there, it doesn't matter if you haven't talked to each other for a year.
Right. And so that's but that's a formalized thing that we've had. Anyway, it's just like, I just think of him and I just think of fondness and happiness and him bringing things out of me. So you have these big mentors that will come in your life, but also you have like these little mentors. And so, one of the things that sticks out for me is Jim, for example, and the way that he is a father to your 4 kids and the way that I have seen him deal with times maybe where kids weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. And I have, being a music teacher, I go into people's houses. This just happened last week where I had a dad literally screaming and cursing at the other child that wasn't in the piano lesson at the time. You take that and I look at Jim, who is calm, he's collected, he taught right. And I remember going home that day and talking to Lauren. I said, man, the way that I think I've even told you this.
I remember the incident. Or I remember one in particular.
Yeah. And the way that worked, like that's how I want it to work in our home. That's what makes sense to me. You know what I mean?
Well, no, and I think I remember one day, because the first time you told it to me, and it was a couple of years ago, because it was even at the old house. Ryan, especially sometimes when we have transition between music lessons or whatever, and this child is coming back from this, and so we finished a music lesson here. And okay, so there was about 30 minutes, and Jim and Patrick, my son, were trying to put together. We had a soccer goal, a timber, and anyway, it gotten all tangled up and stuff. So think big fishing net that's basically all tangled up, pain in the butt. So they were having to lay it out, and so Ryan goes out while he's waiting for the next child to arrive for their lesson. He goes out and he's helping them for about 20 minutes or something like that, and he comes back in and he's like, Leslie, I just like what your husband's selling. He's like, because he was calm and easy with Pat, but at the same time, when Patrick was he wasn't afraid to tell him, no, don't do that. So he was still he wasn't being pushover-ish, but he wasn't being jerk. He was, and even he's like, in one time I even saw him kind of get frustrated and kind of bite it back. And he's like, I just like what he's selling. Yep.
Yeah, I do. And so I'm always,
because and also it was real.
Yeah.
It was real because nobody's the perfect, nobody's the perfect parent. There are frustrating moments and you have to learn how to kind of go through them.
So when things happen in this house, I'm always sort of keying in to what he's doing. Like if he's here and something has happened that requires his attention, that even sometimes will take him away from work, high-powered lawyer who's dealing with these cases worth millions and millions of dollars and all sorts of international disputes. And he can put that aside and just deal with the situation at hand in a concise, timely, calm manner. It's super impressive. So all that to say that it doesn't, you have to be looking, right? You have to have this mindset, which is what we're getting into now, this mindset of what do I want to get? What do I want to look for? How do I want to be, right? It's hard to have a mentor when you don't even know what your own goal is, right? Like that doesn't make sense. So you have to have an idea of like, this is what I think right looks like. And then when those people come into your life that do what right looks like to you, you sort of emulate that.
Yes.
So,
and you're kind of drawn to it because it's like, okay, I'm looking for this type of water, and look, I found this kind of water. Yeah. So, continuing on with the open-mindedness and stuff, be open to the unexpected. I mean, it might not, as we've talked about, it doesn't have to be somebody who looks like you, who's similar in age. Like, in fact, it might not be. Unexpected places. I mean, just because you just used this example, how many mentors do you expect to find sitting in their studies while you're giving music lessons? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
not any really. Like
Right.
I don't, but I do have a very clear understanding of what I want my life to look like.
right.
And
So
when,
you can recognize it when it comes along, and then like, I want to ask them about that,
Yeah.
or I want to pay attention to what they're doing, or whatever it is. But be open minded about situations and people,
Yeah.
because where mentors come from might kind of surprise you.
yeah, and I would even say that you would be wise to try to connect with mentors that don't necessarily have your background, because you come to the table with all these filters, right? We all come with the baggage of how we grew up. What did our parents do? Where did we live? You know, all of that sort of stuff. And so you have a really narrow view of what to do when problems can come up, because you just look back at your family and your history and you're like, well, this is what my parents did. And this is, you know, this is where we lived and this is how we do it. Where other people will have a vast experience in other areas that you could look at and go, hey, yeah, they deal with this situation a different way. And maybe my dad or my mom just always sort of bent to my will. Like if I cried enough or I moaned enough, right? But in this situation, that doesn't happen. So I would encourage to have a diverse set of mentors for sure.
Another one, you want to be looking for someone respectable, but in the literal sense of the term. I don't mean you need the senior vice president of this company.
No.
It's not that kind of, you're looking for someone who's wise. You're looking for somebody who is worthy of respect.
Yeah.
Okay. And part of that is what Ryan's talking about. You know, he knows what he wants his life to look like. He knows what kind of person he wants to be. Okay. And he's fixed his eyes on these, you know, I want to be this kind of wise man, wise father, husband, all this kind of stuff. So when he sees somebody that emulates those things, okay, well, I recognize that that's what I want. And you can kind of say, that's what I mean by respectable. It's not necessarily the title that comes with any of the outward appearances of success.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the most respectable people don't seem to have all sorts of worldly success. Like those are not necessarily things that go hand in hand.
No.
And the real thing you're looking for with mentors is you're looking for wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're a person that wants to be a broker on Wall Street, you're not going to care about the same things that I care about.
Right.
So you have to get the mentors in place that show you how to deal with the stresses of working in that industry and having a personal life and all that. It's a whole different game, right? So you can't just be like, oh, this person's respectable, bang, right?
Right.
So another thing too is I think that mentors, they need to be vetted a little bit in the sense of people that you look at immediately and you do have a connection with. It is wise to make sure that like they're on the up and up.
Right.
I mean,
and
honestly,
this is another part of the respectability thing. You know, just we connected, you know, before you look at their credibility.
Yeah.
Look at like before you start trusting everything that they say, before you start seeking their advice all the time with the intent of, I'm really going to try and follow what they say. Pay attention to not only what you're looking at, that like, so maybe this is a mentor that's going to be on a certain subject matter, or a professional mentor, let's say. And so you're in electrical engineering. I don't know. When you're looking for it, you kind of want the whole picture, even if it is a subject matter thing. So you kind of want to pay attention to, you know, it's not like you need to hire a private investigator to look at this person, but you do want to look at, does this person have the kind of life, a whole life,
right,
that I want? Is this the kind of person that I really want to take advice from? You should be picky about that.
I mean, if you're sitting down with a mentor for the first time and he's like, hey, we're going to go to the strip club to have dinner, that's probably not a mentor that you want to be with.
Right. Even if they have all of the things for, you know, whatever profession it is that you're talking about, you can get led astray pretty quickly there.
Very
so
quickly.
Pay attention to the whole picture.
And it's easy
when you're talking about somebody who you're going to trust with advising you on your own future.
And people are going to know, right? Like you might not have this formal link up, but when I was with Larry, who was my professional mentor, and Ryan, like people knew that Larry was always around Ryan and Ryan was always around Larry. Like there was this, right? We were levels apart in our area as far as like what we did in the company. He was much higher than I was, but it was easy to see that he was pouring into me and that I was taking everything around him. So now if all of a sudden he goes off the rails, that's going to affect my reputation. That's going to affect what I look like and what I'm going to be capable to do within the organization, because I might have the stigma attached to me. If all of a sudden he gets canned.
Well, he's Larry's guy.
And new guy comes in.
And Larry was caught embezzling or whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
that's not a good look. And you might not have had a clue about it. Right. But so you want to vet those kinds of things, right? If you're looking to someone and you're seeking marriage advice, and I mean, this is a ridiculous example, but they've been divorced 4 times. Like that's not a person that you really, they might have a great marriage right now, but I don't know if I'm willing to jump in that.
Right. And I might pay attention to the sense, because if they're coming at me saying stuff like, look, clearly I've made all the mistakes you can make in marriage. And now after a long, hard slog, I've kind of learned that, okay, it's not that I would never take advice from somebody who's been married for, not necessarily going to have the 4-time married person be my marriage mentor.
Right. Instead of having the person that's like, yeah, I've been married once. And let me tell you, for like 7 years there, it was horrible. Right. It was terrible. And, but we stuck it out because of whatever reasons. Right. And now we've sort of come out on the other side. So you got to have that. Let's make sure that this person has credibility, like you said, and that's been vetted and that people sort of approve of the individual, right? Like, for my personal mentor, man, you can't find someone to say a bad thing about them. Like you just can't, right? His name is Richard and and by the way, he's 70, right? And I'm almost 40. And so I love that relationship because he's in this different stage of his life, and it's easy to sort of look back to where I am now. And
are you kidding? That's the thing I've leaned on Sherry for the most.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. But so again, all shapes and sizes, right? Like you would think, oh, this guy's 70 years old. What is, he's getting ready for the retirement home or whatever. And it's like, no.
But he's lived through all of the other stuff that you're going through right now. And also is at that stage probably where they're thinking, this is what I would do differently, or this is what I really thought it worked well. Whatever. Yeah. But you mentioned something just a second ago that I want to go back to about kind of formalizing. You know what? They don't need to be, it's not like, Richard is Ryan's mentor.
Right.
Honestly, it kind of puts the kibosh on it. Like it can cool things off a bit. Like if you're, when you try to name it, you can mess it up a bit.
Just ask anyone that's gone from dating to we're now exclusive.
Again, it is similar to a romantic It is similar to a romantic relationship or a long-term childhood friendship, when you're now in your 40s or 50s. If you try to name too much, now, of course, in romantic relationships, you need to do that.
Yeah.
In mentorships, it's more like friendship. You don't need to, now I can but back when I was in college, and Sherry and I were actively working together, I wouldn't have ever called Sherry my mentor. She was my AAC advisor, which is Alumni Advisory Committee.
It would be like me being 40 and going to Mike, who is the guy that I'm sort of that was talking about the job earlier. Hey, this is what you need to be looking for. Be going to Mike and say, Mike, for the past 2 years, you've been coming to me for advice. And I think it's time where we just call this what it is. I'm your mentor.
Right.
Do you think he's going to come seek me out for advice?
That is very, very cringy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Instead, you just do the thing.
Right.
You just do it.
I mean, you look back a decade later and go, and usually when you're talking to somebody else, like I don't think I've ever called Sherry my mentee, my mentor to her face.
No.
But when I'm talking to everybody else, yeah. And Sherry's mentored me through half of my life.
Exactly. So that
you don't need to name it.
You don't need to name it. Yeah, you're just going to make it awkward. So you just fulfill your role if you believe that this relationship can be a mentor-mentee relationship, whether you're on the mentee side or the mentor side, you just start to act like it. You just start to do it, right? You have an issue, you go to someone that's vetted, that's trusted, and you say, hey, I would like to know what you think about this. and then go from there. So you just have a good time with it.
If you're open-minded to them, if you're open to them, if you're open to being one, it's kind of funny. They just sort of happen.
Yeah. And we sort of danced around this too, but mentorship and friendship, they're sort of like synonymous with each other. Like you're not going to have a mentor that you're not close with, that you're not friendly with.
Right. Or that you're not eventually close with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little difficult to say again, and we don't really want you to name it, which one comes first, because sometimes the friendship comes first. Sometimes the mentoring comes first. It's just they are what they are.
Yeah, they are what they are.
They are what they are.
So one other thing that I want to talk about here from the mentee side is when you're you're on the mentee side and you look at your mentor, sometimes you can, at least for me anyway, have this sense of you don't want to disappoint them. And so maybe sometimes you don't give them the whole story because a part of the story like you really messed up in and the situation might even be your fault. But you don't want to say that to your mentor because they might maybe they don't want to mentor you anymore, or maybe they don't think, right? Stop. Just stop. Okay? When you're in this relationship, you have to be very honest because it's not fair for your mentor, number one, to not get the whole picture and could lead you astray. Right. Because sometimes if it's your fault, he or she might just look at you and be like, you got to own that one.
Yep.
You got to start calling people. You got to start apologizing. I know your ego is going to be crushed, but I'm telling you right now, if you get in front of this thing and just say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I'm not going to let that happen again. I really do apologize. That might just be the best course of action. But because you didn't want to fall on the sword in front of your mentor, they never had the chance to give you that advice. Right. So
not to mention the fact the hardest part of that will be falling on the sword in front of your mentor. Maybe not the hardest part. Like, I don't know, maybe you cheated on your husband or something like that. The hardest part will be confessing to your husband.
Right.
But, close second followed by confess. You got to do it.
Right.
You got to do it. You got to own up to it. And I will say this. I have a short list of people that their disapproval would wreck me. Most of the time it's like, oh, whatever. Yeah, that person doesn't know me. I'm just an acquaintance with that person. It's not that I don't pay attention at all to what other people think about me, but for the most part, I don't care. There is a short list of people that their approval I care a whole lot about. And one of the ways that you've got a mentor is when some person is on your list and they're not your spouse, not your parent, like, oh, I really, really give a crap about what they think.
Yeah.
That starts to have, it's hard, but you must be on it because also the health of that relationship is also predicated upon your honesty.
Yes.
I mean, it loses its value when you can't be honest with them anymore. Then it loses some of its value, and if they find out you weren't honest with them, then that's going to lose some. It's going to lose some actual strength. Got to do it.
Yeah, you don't want to be a patient in a House episode where House is like everybody lies. Nobody comes in here and tells the truth, right? That.
I was watching House just the other day. Okay, seriously, we must be sympathetic.
Mind melding.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know why I haven't watched House in probably 10 years because it's now old enough that I could have not watched it for 10 years. And then in the past couple weeks, I don't know, the kids and I have watched multiple episodes.
Yeah, it's a great show. So yeah, you don't want to be everybody lies. You have to be open. You have to be honest. You have to. You got to give this relationship all of the same benefits that you would give, like we've talked about, a romantic relationship. You got to be honest in a romantic relationship. In a long-term friendship, there are going to be times where things, right? But you got to be able to put those things past you and don't let your ego get in the way of learning what that person has to offer you.
Right.
Good. Okay. And so our last one, I think we sort of
covered it, but still, what is it? Because my computer's going down.
They're like long friendships, right? They often do cross into that where
the time and effort.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Because it's a little odd because as we've just said, it's not like you have to have weekly coffee with these people, But if you've had lifelong friendships, let's say you're in your 30s, and so you're still trying to maintain friendships that you had when you were a child, and probably there will only be a handful of them or what, they require effort.
Yeah.
They don't require that you see each other all the time. We were just talking, you can go for a year without talking to these people and then, call them up or end up on a Zoom call and it's like you were just talking 2 days ago. Absolutely. We all have friends like that. At the same time, that actually requires it. Like you need to remember, gosh, I haven't talked to them about 6 months. I'm going to check in.
Yeah.
Right. If let's say y'all live in different parts of the country and somebody's coming to town, then you know what? You move some, well, I've got this regular meeting and I've got this. And so I just don't know if I can make, no. When they come to town or when you go to their town, everybody kind of rearranges things so that you can at least get together for a meal.
Yeah.
Right. That kind of effort. It's not some sort of regular maintenance effort, but it's, you make time. Whose phone calls do you take?
Right.
Whose phone? By the way, she's one of the few, because I'm terrible about answering phone calls. Unless it's, I am terrible about answering phone calls. And I even have it on my
voicemail.
Your
voicemail
say, I don't
basically
monitor
says,
my voicemail. Yeah. Please, if you need me right now, send me a text or send me an email, but I don't monitor voicemail.
Your voicemail, your outgoing voicemail is basically saying in a very nice way, if you'd like to waste your time, leave a message. Okay, I won't do that. I won't do that.
Exactly. And then I'm definitely one of those, if the number comes up and I don't recognize the number, it's not in my contacts or something, I'm not picking it up.
Yep.
And then sometimes, you're in the middle of it, because just because somebody calls you at a given time doesn't mean, we talked about this, I think in one of the etiquette episodes, just because somebody calls you at a given time doesn't mean that you might not be in the middle of something else. They don't have a monopoly or a command of your time just because they happen to pick up the phone then. So, okay, fine. So-and-so's calling. I'll call them back in 20 minutes or whatever when I'm done. And I actually love that feature where you can hit the little thing that says, not free at the moment, call you back shortly.
Yep.
Use that one on a regular.
Yeah.
But whose phone calls do I take? I take my husband's phone calls, take Sherry's phone calls, pretty much whenever they pop up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And this is one of those things that isn't, while it does happen organically, and the beginning of the relationship happens organically, chances are if you are wanting to be a mentee of somebody who you look at and you go, wow, that person's probably like got a lot going on. Like there's a reason why you wanted to be with them in the first place. So there is like a piece of scheduling to this that sometimes, no, you don't have to meet every single week, but I would advise you to, when you text or call and say, hey, been thinking about meeting for a little while now. Maybe, it's not uncommon for me to put something on the calendar with Richard. Like if I texted him right now, chances are we would meet at the end of May. It's May 6th right now. Okay. So you got to kind of schedule these things out. These people hopefully are pretty busy and they got a lot going on, because a lot of people recognize how amazing they are. And any mentor worth their salt should be also be a mentor to other people. Like it's not just you, right? It's not like just a one thing, one thing going on. So you got to sort of respect that. If they seem busy or whatever, like you got to give allowances for that and put it on the schedule. And there are times, especially like when I think about my corporate career and Larry specifically, that I would have to put things on the calendar way, way out in advance. But the thing about it is, though, like you start doing this long enough, then it's like you said, all of a sudden, if we don't go a couple months, like it's not that big of a deal. But now, like I look back at my life and I look back at the way that I speak, the way that I handle situations, how I handle myself in a professional setting. Like I don't even know where I begin and my mentors end. Right. You know, I don't even know. Like
they taught you those things.
They taught me those things. So
are you you were watching them in meetings and you adapted those? I like how that works, so I'm going to use it.
Yeah. Right. So like one of the things that I can remember, and I always say it, is I always say it's people, it's process, and then it's a project. It's these 3 Ps, right? And I can remember just Larry like hammering that in a board meeting one day, just nonstop.
And now it's a mantra for you.
It is. And it's like, if you don't have the right people, it doesn't matter what your process is. If your process isn't locked down, then you're not going to be able to go and expand out into new things.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So it's like, there are finite steps to this. And so you sort of forget, right?
Right. And I want to point out something here too, because I think it goes back up to the beginning of what we talked about. If sometimes people want to look for a mentor. Okay, so you're at a company and you see that senior vice president that you don't really you don't really have a relationship with them at all, and you're like, I want that person to be my mentor because they have all these checkbox things.
Yep.
Okay. Ryan's talking about getting on this person's schedule after they've already developed the relationship, which happened because they happened to be thrown together on this project. Like the whole relationship start happened organically.
Right.
Cold calling mentoring doesn't really work. Like, hey, I really admire you and I think you're great. Would you go for coffee for me? Because I'd love to have you mentor. It's almost as dampening as afterwards of, we've been doing this for about 6 months now. I think we should call it a mentor-mentee thing, right? Yeah. I mean, it's the early version of that. You can't just you can't cold call it.
I've tried.
Honestly, it doesn't work. The relationships develop on their own. Once they have developed, then all of this stuff comes in. But you can't put one in front of the other. You can't just say, okay, I want that person who I have no relation to and no connection to other than we work at the same company and maybe on the same floor.
Yeah.
I want, and now somebody I'm sure somewhere is going to say, well, actually I did that and it worked just fine. Okay, great. Fine. There are Aunt Petunia situations and lightning strikes and sometimes don't rely on it that way. Mentor relationships kind of happen organically with people that you are around and that you interact with.
Yeah. And also
that you might already have in your life.
And also too, if it's you're cold calling, then you're not doing the whole vetting thing that we talked about earlier, right? It's like, wow, this guy came in, he gave this rah-rah shish goomba speech. Everyone got fired up. It's awesome. I want to be like him. So I sent him an email and we have a couple meetings and they're kind of stunted. They're kind of awkward. But people know that we're meeting together because I have to tell my direct report that I'm going to meet, so-and-so. And then all of a sudden, boom, this guy's gone because, he had inappropriate behavior at the workplace and bang, right? So yes. So I think what would be helpful, because we sort of like jumped around a lot here, is let's sort of systematically take it step by step to when you're looking for a mentor, right? So I think the first thing is the mindset, right? You have to be aware of who you are, what you want, and then when you're in social situations, have those eyes and those ears on.
Have that radar out.
Yeah, have that. Yeah.
Looking for that person. And they might not even be in your industry. Like, really, it could come from any other.
It can come from anywhere.
Right.
It can come from anywhere. Have your eyes and your ears open. Be willing to go and invest time early in that friendship. See how they act. See them in multiple situations, right? Because now that friendship has started to grow, or because you can have friendships that aren't mentors, like that's okay.
Absolutely.
Right? That's fine. So that starts to grow. You see them in tough situations, how they deal with it. Then, hey, let's go do something, or we had a lunch or something like that. But then you can say, once you had enough time with that individual, you can then say, hey, I'd really like to take you out for coffee or lunch, or, just being around you has taught me a bunch of things.
And I find now you can do the thing that you might have tried with the cold calling of like, okay, we have a relationship. Look, I really liked how you handled X, Y, and Z situation. And, I'm looking up to how you do this, and I'm trying to sort out how I'm doing this thing over here.
Yeah. What do you think?
What would you do if it were you? And the next thing you know, you're kind of in the middle of
you're doing it.
And in the middle of a real mentor relationship that's built on something, more solid.
You're doing it. You're doing it at that point. And then don't be a pest, right? If you don't be calling every other day or with every single problem that you have, mentor. My grass is brown and it should be green. What should I do? It's like, dude, don't call me. You know what I mean? Like, don't call me.
Exactly. I call Sherry twice a year,
right?
Maybe, with like stuff like this.
Yeah.
And not regularly twice a year. Like stuff will come, but I don't call her about every tiny thing.
No.
I usually call about the big stuff, mainly because we don't live in the same city. If we lived in the same city, we might talk about a bit more. But yes, you don't call. It's part of the reason you want to have these relationships is so that you can start to learn what formulas they use to make things work. And so you can start solving some of your own problems.
Took the words right out of my mouth. It's like, it might be in the beginning that maybe you're together once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, but then as time goes on, they've poured enough into you at that
Right.
point where you don't have to call.
Right.
You're just able to deal. Right.
Right.
Very good. Okay. I
Cool.
think that covers it.
Excellent. Nothing.
Oh,
Whoops,
no.
You knocked the microphone.
Sorry.
Whoops.
I have to hold it. Join our Discord. I didn't mention it in the
That's
open.
what I was just, you just looked at me like, what are you saying? I was like, oh, you forgot to mention the Discord at the beginning. Ryan, what am I going to do with you?
Okay. All right. Hold on. Okay. So as you know, we have little show notes. Do I see anywhere in here that don't forget to mention the Discord? No. Okay. So there's a link in the description. Click the link. Come join the Discord. We got folks funneling in there. If you're listening to the podcast, you can go right to the description. The link is right in there as well. Come on in. Come say hi. We're trying to build that thing up so we can go live and communicate with you guys because that is the next evolution.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to work out how to get there. So yeah, come check us out on Discord. Otherwise, I've been Ryan Talon.
And I have been Leslie Loftus.
You have been awesome. Guys, we'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Bye.